Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel and Mirz Hashem. Today we will be learning Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on Mem Vav Amud Aleph. We're in middle of Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Gimel that we began tomorrow. We're up to the top line of the Mishnah Berurah here on Mem Vav Amud Aleph, right by the Ois Katan Dalid for the Shar HaTzion, by the word upashut. Our learning today should be a schus for Achinu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanesudim Batzara Ubashivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Alehem V'Yetzim Mitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelu L'Oiro Mishiba L'Geula, Hashta B'Agolav Zman Kariv and Amar Main. Our learning should be a schus Refuah Shalema for Tzvi ben Leah Miriam, and also for the protection of Yisrael ben Rachel, Yonasan ben Michal, and Yoel ben Michal, who are boots on the ground in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them together with all of the other soldiers, all of our brothers and sisters that find themselves in harm's way. B'soich Shar Yisrael. Okay, so we learned yesterday here in Sif Beis in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph that women have the same chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush that men do. We learned that really, strictly speaking, this seems to be a great aberration, because we know the great rule that women are peturos from mitzvahs aseh shazman grama. Generally speaking, women are always exempt from a mitzvah aseh that is time dependent. There's a very good reason for that, and that is that women are always being pulled in different directions. There's the baby crying. Their responsibility is to take care of the baby. There's children that need things. There's the household that needs things. To place the chiyuv of a mitzvah seishas man grama on a woman is a very, very difficult thing, and therefore we learned out that women are peturos from mitzvah seishas man grama. Now, the mitzvah daraisa of Kiddush on Shabbos is certainly a mitzvah seishas man grama. You can only be mekayim it on Shabbos. You can't be mekayim it on Tuesday. Yet, the halacha is that women are chayavos in the mitzvah say daraisa of Kiddush. Why is that? Because we have a hekesh in the Aseret Dirshu in Parshas Yisro. The Torah Kedoshah tells us Zachar es Yom HaShabbos lekadshoi. From that pasuk we learn out the chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush, Zachar es Yom HaShabbos. You have to remember and mention verbally the kedusha of Shabbos. We also saw that you have to mention the shevach of Shabbos, the praise of Shabbos, in order to be mekayim the mitzvah of Kiddush properly. So we learn out Kiddush from Zachar es Yom HaShabbos lekadshoi. In the Aseret Dirshu in Parshas Vayeschanan, it says Shamar es Yom HaShabbos. You should guard it and protect it. That's a reference to all of the Yisurim of Shabbos, the Isser Malacha on Shabbos. We make a hekesh and we say the same way women are chayiv in what we learn out from Shamar, all of the Yisurim of Shabbos apply equally to women the same way they apply to men. So too, the halakha of Kiddush that we learn out from Zachar also applies equally to women the same way it applies to men. How do we have a hekesh between Zachar and Shamar? Usually a hekesh takes place when we have two things that are mentioned right next to each other in the Torah Kedoshah. Over here, Zachar is in Parshas Yisro, Shamar is in Parshas Vayeschanan. One is in Sefer Shmos, one is in Sefer Dvarim. How do we have a hekesh? The answer is because we know Chazal teach us Zachar v'Shamar b'dibur echad. The Rebbeinu Shalom Kaviyachal said Zachar v'Shamar simultaneously, something that a Basar Adam cannot do. A Basar Adam, a person, a human being, doesn't have the ability to say two words simultaneously. The Rebbeinu Shalom said Zachar v'Shamar simultaneously, and we heard it from the Rebbeinu Shalom simultaneously, which is also difficult to comprehend. We usually can't hear two different things clearly at the same exact time. Yet by Zachar v'Shamar, that's what happened. So since Zachar v'Shamar b'dibur echad, that creates a hekesh between Zachar and Shamar, and thus women are chayiv in the mitzvah say daraisa of Kiddush. Okay, now against that backdrop, let's take a look at what the Mishnah Berurah says over here. It says the Mishnah Berurah, Upashut, it is simple to understand, the katan einoi moitzi es ha'isha, based on the fact that a woman has a chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush. Now it turns out that a katan cannot be moitzi an isha who's a gedola, an adult woman, in Kiddush. Deloyasi derabanan umapik daraisa. because do the math. The child, the cotton, even if he's a cotton shehigia lechinuch, his chiyuv of kiddush is only a chiyuv d'Rabbanan. The woman has a chiyuv d'Oraisa. So a cotton who has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan cannot be moitzi a woman in her chiyuv d'Oraisa. Okay, now continues the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah wonders like this. When we talk about a boy who's a cotton or a boy who's a gadol, what's the line of demarcation that we always use between a cotton and a gadol? Bar mitzvah. If he's bar mitzvah, so he's a gadol. If he's less than 13, he's not yet bar mitzvah, he's a cotton. So now, okay, we said that a cotton cannot be moitzi a woman in Kiddush because the woman is carrying a chiyuv d'Oraisa, and the cotton only has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan of chinuch. How about if we're talking about a boy who's already bar mitzvah? So like this, you would say, okay, he's a gadol. He's a gadol, he has a chiyuv d'Oraisa. He has a chiyuv d'Oraisa, she has a chiyuv d'Oraisa. There should be no problem. Yet, the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us not so quick. The reason it's not so quick is because when we speak about a katan versus a gadol, it's not a magic date on the calendar that really turns a cotton into a gadol. It's not chronological. It's not that a boy who's less than 13 years of age is a katan, and once he reaches the point on the calendar where he's 13 years of age, now he becomes a gadol. The real line of demarcation between a katan and a gadol is based on physical simanim. There are physical signs of adulthood that both men and women have. When they reach adulthood, there are certain physical signs that they develop. And really, that's what turns a cotton into a gadol. So the classic sign, physical sign, that's used all over Shas is hevi shtei sairos. If a boy already produced 2 pubic hairs, so then he's considered a gadol. But until then, he's not really considered a gadol. Now, yet, we always use bar mitzvah. Now, not every boy who's bar mitzvah was already mevi shtei sairos. So how do we count every 13-year-old for a minyan? The answer is, and we learned this earlier in Chelik Aleph, is Siman Nun Hey, when we spoke about the halachas of a minyan and the halachas of Tefillah B'tzibur, is we have a famous chazaka, which we know as chazaka de Rava. Rava says that there is, generally speaking, a chazaka that most boys who have reached the age of 13 years old are already mevi shtei sairos. But that's not a hard, fast rule. So the halacha is that we rely on that chazaka when it comes to dinei d'Rabbanan. We rely on it when it comes to rabbinical requirements. For instance, 10 people for a minyan. The halacha of Tefillah B'tzibur, 10 people for a minyan, is not a din d'Oraisa. It's a requirement d'Rabbanan. It's not a requirement d'Oraisa. So when it comes to the question of counting a 13-year-old to a minyan, we could rely on chazaka de Rava. But over here, we're talking about a d'Oraisa. We're saying that a woman carries a chiyuv d'Oraisa of Kiddush. Now you want a 13-year-old boy to be moitzi her in Kiddush? Over here, b'mili d'Oraisa, when we're talking about a requirement d'Oraisa, we can't rely on chazaka de Rava. So, says the Mishnah Berurah, va'afilu im hu ben shloish esrei shana. Even if we're talking about a boy who's already 13 years of age, chayshinon shama lo hevi shtei sairos. We have to be concerned that maybe he doesn't really have the physical signs of maturity, and therefore he's not really a gadol. Because when it comes to dinei d'Oraisa, we don't rely on a chazaka de Rava, which is to be kevan sheyagia lechlal shanim. Chazaka de Rava says that once a boy reaches the age of 13 years, he gia lechlal simani cyrus. He's already going to have the physical symptoms of maturity. Ad sheyismale zekanoi, unless you see that he's already capable of growing a full beard. If he's capable of growing a full beard, then we know he already has all of the physical signs of maturity, and no matter what his age is, he's already considered a gadol. But for mili d'Oraisa, we don't rely on this chazaka de Rava. Okay, so the Mishnah Berurah has said here so far, can a katan, even a katan shehigia lechinuch, He's 6 or 7 years old. Could he be moitzi a woman in Kiddush? No. That, the Mishnah Berurah says, is a davar pashut. The woman carries a chiyuv daraisa. The cotton at higia lechinuch is only carrying a chiyuv darabanan. He can't come with his chiyuv darabanan and moitzi a woman who has a chiyuv daraisa. Then the Mishnah Berurah said, how about a 13-year-old? Says the Mishnah Berurah, even a 13-year-old, absolutely not pashut. Why? Because even though normally we're soymech on chazaka derava, but we could only be soymech on chazaka derava b'mili derabanan, not b'mili daraisa. V'lachein, therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, tekadeh sha'isha la'atzma, a woman who's home and she needs kiddush, she should not have the cotton make kiddush for her. She shouldn't even have the bar mitzvah bacher make kiddush for her, unless the bar mitzvah bacher is already displaying the ability to grow a full beard. It doesn't mean that he has a full beard. It could be he shaves, but you could see that he grows. He's capable of growing a full beard. But if not, then she should not have the bar mitzvah bacher make kiddush for her. Rather, she should make her own kiddush. V'em einu yodas lekadish ba'atzma. What if she's not capable of making her own kiddush? She doesn't know how to read, or whatever it is. She can't make her own kiddush. Then, Taimar imoy mila b'mila. What she should do is, she should have him recite kiddush, and she should repeat word for word. Vayichulu, vayichulu, hashamayim, hashamayim, v'ha'aretz, v'ha'aretz, v'chol, v'chol, tziva'am, tziva'am, etc., etc. Me roishai va'ad soifai. From the beginning of Kiddush to the end of Kiddush. And she should make sure that she does not have kavanah to be yotze with his Kiddush. She should repeat the words after him, having in mind that she's making her own Kiddush and she's not being yotze with his Kiddush. Because to be yotze with his Kiddush would be a problem. And realize, if she doesn't have in mind not to be yotze with his kiddush, then she might be getting herself into a suffix. Maybe really he is a gadol, and maybe she already was yotze kiddush. And then the bracha that she's making is a bracha of HaTorah. So therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, she should specifically have kavanah not to be yotze with his kiddush, that she's making her own kiddush. And continues the Chavetz Chaim, therefore, and he says, Uba'ofen zeh, in such a case where she's making her own kiddush by repeating word for word after him, kevan shehiyai meres hakiddush, since she's going to be reciting the kiddush ba'atzma on her own, nachayin, it is proper shehei pasa yayin munach gam lefaneha be'es hakiddush, that she should have either a kais of yayin or she should have lechem in front of her, so that she's making kiddush al hakos or kiddush al hapas. She shouldn't rely on the fact that the bar mitzvah bacher is holding the kais, because we said yesterday, if somebody else is holding the kais, that it's not so pashut that you could be yotze kiddush al hakos, because he's holding the kais. Even though, strictly speaking, you don't have to hold the kais. Strictly speaking, if the kais is sitting on the table and you recite kiddush, that's called making kiddush al hakos. But if somebody else is holding it, that's problematic. So she should make sure that she has either her own kais in front of her, or pas biyadoi, or she has pas, since she's not being yotze with his kiddush. The eitzah zu, and this eitzah, says the Mishnah Berurah, to repeat word for word after the katan, mayila afilu imu katan biyoser. This works even if you're talking about a 6-year-old. This works. But you don't need a bacher who's 13 years old. You know why? Because you're not using his kiddush at all. All he's doing is instructing the woman on how to say the words. The woman doesn't know how to read. So he says vayichulu, she says vayichulu. But you're not being yotze in his kiddush in any way, shape, or form. So therefore it doesn't matter how old the kid is, as long as the kid knows how to read. Now, over here the Mishnah Berurah is going to say now another halacha, and we have to follow the math over here based on what we learned yesterday. Says the Mishnah Berurah. What am I telling you here? I'm telling you over here that there's a way we're discussing the question of a katan being moitzi a woman in her chiyuv of kiddush. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'chol zeh b'shaloi hispalala ha'isha tfilas arvis. The conversation that we've had so far is germane to a case where a woman did not daven Ma'ariv on Friday night. Let's remember something that we learned yesterday. We learned yesterday that there's a chiyuv a mitzvah say daraisa of Kiddush. But that mitzvah say daraisa comes from Zachar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshei. Now, all you need to do to be Mekayim that Chiyuv is to recite the words of Kiddush verbally. Then you are Mekayim, Zachar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshei, and you covered your Chiyuv daraisa. We said yesterday, the Magen Avram said, that you could be Yotzei that Chiyuv by davening Ma'ariv. You davened Ma'ariv, you said Vayichulu, you said Gal Yisrael and Ma'ariv, you said V'shamaru. You could be Yotzei your Chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush with davening Ma'ariv. The Chiyuv of making Kiddush al HaKos, that's a D'Rabbanan. Now we have said over here, can a cotton be Moitzi a woman in Kiddush? No, because she's carrying a Chiyuv daraisa. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, how about if she already davened Ma'ariv? If she davened Ma'ariv, now it would seem that she's no longer carrying a Chiyuv daraisa, she's only carrying a Chiyuv D'Rabbanan. Says the Mishnah Berurah. So, v'chol zeh b'shaloi yispal ha'isha tfilas arvis. The conversation that we've had so far about the viability of a katan being moitzi an isha who's a gedola in Kiddush is only germane to a case where the woman did not herself daven Ma'ariv. Avalim hispalila, but if she davened Ma'ariv, de ladasa Magen Avram now, according to the Magen Avram that we learned about yesterday, kvar yotza yidei Kiddush daraisa, she was already yotzei Kiddush daraisa if she davened Ma'ariv. Bazeh yesh lismaich. They got to be very careful here what the Mishnah Berurah says. Bazeh, in such a case, where the woman already davened Ma'ariv, so according to the Magen Avram, she already disposed of her Chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush. Yesh lismaich al nar ben shloish esrei shanim. Now she could rely on a boy who's already 13 years old, sheyotzia achakach bekiddush, that now he could be moitzi her in Kiddush, dahainu sheyechavein lohotzia, that the boy who's 13 years old will make Kiddush and have kavanah to be moitzi her in a Kiddush, and she'll have kavanah to be yotzi with his Kiddush. Now, this is very strange at first glance. Let me tell you why. Again, let's follow the math. In order for somebody to be moitzi somebody else in his chiyuv, they have to have matching chiyuvim. So they either have to both have a chiyuv daraisa, or both have a chiyuv d'Rabbanan, right? Or certainly if one is a chiyuv daraisa and the other one only has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan, the one with the chiyuv daraisa could be moitzi the one with the chiyuv d'Rabbanan. But if one person has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan and the other person has a chiyuv daraisa, so then the one with the chiyuv d'Rabbanan cannot be moitzi the one with the chiyuv daraisa, right? So this is already aleph beis. This is very basic. So we understand this. So we started off the share today where the Mishnah Berurah said, you have a cotton. A cotton, even if he's a cotton shehigia lechinuch, only has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan. An isha who's a gedola has a chiyuv daraisa. So the cotton cannot be moitzi the isha, because the cotton has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan, the isha has a chiyuv daraisa. The one with the chiyuv d'Rabbanan can't be moitzi the one with the chiyuv daraisa. Okay, simple. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, how about if the woman already davened Ma'ariv? If she already davened Ma'ariv, she already, according to the Magen Avram, she already disposed of her chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush, Zachar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshei. She's only left with the chiyuv d'Rabbanan of Kiddush al HaKos. So now, if you follow the math, it would seem that a katan, even a katan shehigia lechinuch, even a 6 or 7 year old who has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan, should be able to be moitzi her in her chiyuv d'Rabbanan. You have a 7-year-old boy. He has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan of Kiddush because of the mitzvah of chinuch. You have an isha gedola. She only has a chiyuv d'Rabbanan of Kiddush al hayayin. Her chiyuv daraisa of Zachar es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshei, she already took care of with Ma'ariv. So why does the Mishnah Berurah say that in this case you need a 13-year-old? Why do you need a 13-year-old? Why is it the 6 or 7-year-old enough? The answer is to be found in the Sharet Tzion Ois Katan Dalet. You can see it inside if you want. I'm not going to read it inside. I'm just going to explain it to you. What the Mishnah Berurah basically says is based on what we learned yesterday. We learned about this Magen Avram yesterday. And according to the Magen Avram, it's true. According to the Magen Avram, there really is no reason why you need a 13-year-old here. Even a 6 or 7-year-old, he's carrying a Chiyuv D'Rabbanan because of Chinuch. The Isha who's a Gdoila is carrying a Chiyuv D'Rabbanan. There's no reason he can't be Moitzi her. But the Mishnah Berurah yesterday said that Yesh Lefakvek, you could take a lot of issue with this Magen Avram. One of the primary reasons the Mishnah Berurah takes issue with the Magen Avram is because the Magen Avram is assuming that somebody who davens Ma'ariv already disposes of his Chiyuv D'Oraisa of Kiddush. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that's not a davar pashut at all, because mitzvah strichas kavana. What does that mean, mitzvah strichas kavana? It means that when you put on your tefillin in the morning, you have to have kavana that you're putting on your tefillin in order to be mekayim the mitzvah say d'oraisa of putting on tefillin. Same thing, if you want to take care of your chiyuv mitzvah say of kiddush, zachar yom shabbos akadshai, it's not enough to daven ma'ariv. When you daven ma'ariv, you have to have kavana in your ma'ariv that you want to be yoytze the chiyuv asay of kiddush. Who has kavana when they daven ma'ariv to be mekayim the mitzvah say of kiddush? Nobody. So says the Mishnah Berurah, how is the Magen Avram assuming that somebody who daven ma'ariv disposed of his chiyuv d'oraisa of kiddush? Therefore, explains the Mishnah Berurah in the Sharet Tzion, over here in our case, we're talking about a woman who already davened ma'ariv. If you follow the math, we're assuming, she davened ma'ariv. She no longer has a chiyuv d'oraisa. She no longer has a chiyuv d'oraisa. So okay, so the cotton is a chiyuv d'rabbanan. She has a chiyuv d'rabbanan. The cotton could be moitzi the isha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, says who? Who says the woman no longer has a chiyuv d'oraisa? She had kavana when she davened ma'ariv to be yoytze kiddush? She didn't have kavana to be yoytze kiddush. Therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, and he says that Tosfos says like this. I'm sorry, not Tosfos. He says that the Sefer Tosefes Shabbos also says to be machmir. He says we can't assume that she took care of her chiyuv d'rabbanan. For all we know, she still has a chiyuv d'oraisa. Okay, so now we've solved one problem, but the truth is we've created a new problem. Why? Because we've solved the problem of why does the Mishnah Berurah say that the woman needs a 13-year-old? Why does she need a 13-year-old? Why can't she use a 6 or 7-year-old who's already a cotton shegiel chinuch? We answered that problem. She can't rely on a cotton shegiel chinuch because the cotton shegiel chinuch certainly only has a chiyuv d'rabbanan. She might still have a chiyuv d'oraisa. Maybe she didn't have kavana in ma'ariv to be yoytze kiddush, therefore she's not yoytze her chiyuv kiddush d'oraisa. So no, she can't rely on a 6 or 7-year-old. But now comes a new question. How could she rely on a 13-year-old? If you're telling me that she still might have a chiyuv d'oraisa, then we can't rely on chazaka d'rava that because he's 13, his zicha may be shtei cyrus, so we can't rely on chazaka d'rava. If we can't rely on chazaka d'rava, then how could the 13-year-old be moitzi her in kiddush? The answer to that question is to be found in Sharet Tzion Ois Cotton Zion, and in the very end of the lengthy Biur Halacha that starts on Mem Hey Amud Aleph and ends on Mem Hey Amud Beis, Biur Halacha Dibra Maschel Miyad. The answer is very interesting. The answer, says the Chavetz Chaim, is because over here, when you have a 13-year-old boy trying to be moitzi a woman who davened ma'ariv already, now you're dealing with a svek sveka. You're dealing with a double suffix, a case of a double doubt. What does that mean? So in the very end of this Biur Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah explains it. He says you have two svekis over here. First of all, this boy who's 13 years old, it's true that for a daraisa, we don't rely on chazaka d'rava. But we definitely have a suffix. Maybe since he's 13, he already has shtei cyrus. Maybe he already is physically mature. Maybe he's not. So that's a suffix. That's one suffix. Then we have a second suffix. What's the second suffix? This woman already davened ma'ariv. Maybe she was yoytze, her chiyuv d'oraisa of kiddush. So over here you have a double suffix. It's a svek sveka. Based on a svek sveka, we're going to allow a 13-year-old to be moitzi the isha who's a gdoila, who already davened ma'ariv in her chiyuv of kiddush. What's the takeaway for us in most circumstances? I think the number one takeaway over here is it's Friday night, if somehow mommy is home alone together with the children and the father is away, and now you need Kiddush Friday night, I think for a lot of people, there would automatically be an understanding if there's a boy sitting at the table who's 13 years old, mommy is going to turn to her nice little yeshiva bacharul, and she's going to say, okay, bacharul, make Kiddush. You're a bar mitzvah. Make Kiddush. According to this Mishnah Berurah, we're going to assume that the woman didn't daven Ma'ariv. Most women don't daven Ma'ariv. So we're going to assume the woman didn't daven Ma'ariv. But Ferisha Mechaber, she's carrying a chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush. We don't rely on Chazaka Derava B'mili daraisa. Unless this yeshiva bacharul displays the ability to grow a full beard, we don't know that he's maybe Shtei Cyrus. If we don't know if he's maybe Shtei Cyrus, we don't know that he's really a gadol. We don't know that he could pater her in her chiyuv daraisa of Kiddush Friday night. And therefore, she should make Kiddush. And when she makes Kiddush, she could be mitzi everybody, because she has the same chiyuv daraisa as everybody else. It's not like other things. It's not like lulav and esrog that a woman doesn't really have a chiyuv. No, Kiddush Friday night, she has the same chiyuv daraisa as everybody else. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter. We didn't finish this ice cotton bays over here. We're up to a couple of lines before Mishnah Berurah ice cotton dalid. Kasav b'sefer El Yarabah. It's written in the Sefer El Yarabah, Shnei Anoshim. You have two men. Im roitzim lahoitzi b'nei beisam. This happens very often. I think probably the most common time that this happens is, let's say, by a family simcha on Shabbos. So you have a family simcha on Shabbos, everybody's eating together in a hall, and they put multiple families around one table, and each person, each balabayas at the table, each head of household wants to make their own Kiddush. They don't want to have one person be mitzi everybody. So now, you might have 4 men, head of households, all making Kiddush for their wives and kids sitting around the same table. Points out El Yarabah, Kasab Sefer El Yarabah, Shnei Anoshim, 2 men, Im roitzim lahoitzi b'nei beisam, if they want to be mitzi the members of their household in Kiddush, lo yikachu ka'achas, they should not say Kiddush at the same time. Detrei koli loy mishtami, because we have a famous teaching of Chazal that it's impossible to clearly hear and clearly discern the words if you're hearing 2 voices at the same time. So they should take turns. One should say Kiddush first, the other one should say Kiddush second, etc., etc. Okay, now let's go back into the Shulchan Aruch top line here on Mem Vav Amud Aleph. Says the Mechaber, since women have the same chiyuv daraisa as men, u'moitzios es ha'anoshim, women could be moitzi men in their chiyuv of Kiddush. Hayil v'chayavos men HaTorah kamaisam, since they're carrying the same chiyuv daraisa that the men are. Okay, says the Mishnah Cotton Dalid, u'moitzios es ha'anoshim, v'chein hiskimu hataz, u'magen Avram, v'hagra, u'sha'arei achrayim. There's a whole impressive list of achrayim over here who agreed to this mechaber that women could be mitzi men in their chiyuv of Kiddush. Umikamakim, nevertheless, yesh lahachmir lechatchila shaloi toitzi isha anoshim she'enam mibnei beisa. That women should not be mitzi men that are not members of their household. So if a woman wants to be mitzi her immediate family members that live in her house together with her, that seems is okay. But you have guests over, a woman should not be mitzi fremde. She shouldn't be mitzi other people. When I say fremde, that doesn't mean just strange people, even friends. She could be mitzi the members of her household. She shouldn't be mitzi other people. Dezila milsa, because this is not appropriate. Zila milsa, I guess in English you would say it's not becoming. I don't want to put words into the Chavetz Chaim's mouth, chas v'chalila, but to me, what I think the Chavetz Chaim is saying is that this is not migidre hatznius. This is not appropriate, that a woman, kol kfuda bas melech penima, it's not sneistic for a woman to get up and speak. It's not sneistic for a woman to get up and be making Kiddush in front of a group of people, being mitzi, a group of people in a mili de kedusha. The reason women can be mitzi men is because they carry the same chiyuv as the men. They have the same chiyuv daraisa as the men. And by the way, just I don't even think I have to say this, but I put this out there in the ether, and I don't know who's listening to it. No one should have a takeaway of what I just said, that somehow women are chas v'chalila lesser than men, and therefore it's inappropriate for a woman to get up and be mitzi men. It's not a question of better, worse, lesser, more. That's not what it is. It's a question of role. That's what it's a question of. It's not a woman's role to be mitzi people in Dvar Kedusha. That's not her role. So in a setting of B'nai Beisai and her immediate family, that's called private. That's a private matter. It's not that she's getting up in public and doing it in public. It's a private matter. And you should know that I could speak for a long time about this, but harbe kulmasim nishbarim alzeh, many, literally that means many pens have been broken on this. There's been a lot of writing about this because there's a very basic question that comes out from this gra, from this Taz, this Magen Avram, and that is the question of a woman being mitzi men in Kriyas Megillah, where we seem to say that women cannot be mitzi men in Kriyas Megillah. Now, by Kriyas Megillah, men and women also have the same level of chiyuv. So why can't women be mitzi men in Kriyas Megillah? And how come they can't be mitzi men in Kriyas Megillah, but they could be mitzi men in Kiddush? There's a lot of different answers that are given to this question. One of the answers is that Kriyas Megillah is considered something that's berabim. That's considered a public matter. After all, the whole point of Kriyas Megillah is presume milsa. It's to publicize the nace of Purim. So even if you happen to be reading Megillah in your living room, but Kriyas Megillah is considered a public matter. Kiddush is not considered a public matter. Kiddush is something that happens at home, around the dining room table. That's considered a private matter. Therefore, a woman can be mitzi b'nei beisa in Kiddush, but you can't be mitzi people in Mikra Megillah. There are other reasons given as well, but be that as it may, that's not what we're focusing on here. We're learning Hilchos Shabbos. Ice cut and hay. The reason women can be mitzi men is because they have the same level of chiyuv. Therefore, she could be mitzi other men, even if she was already yotze kiddush. A woman was home. She made Kiddush for herself Friday night. Now she goes out somewhere else, and wherever she goes, they need somebody to make Kiddush Friday night. She could make Kiddush again to be mitzi other people. Where we say that a man could make Kiddush a dozen times to be mitzi other people. Because when it comes to Kiddush, men, women, they're the same. V'da, you should know, says the Chavetz Chaim. A very, very important halacha, Rabbi say. V'da, you should know. When one person is being mitzi another person in Kiddush, he has to have kavanah to be mitzi the other person. And the one listening to the Kiddush, he has to have kavanah to be yotzi. So it's like in shul on Rosh Hashanah when the Gabi gives a klap. Everyone should have in mind to be yotze with the brachas of shofar and to be yotze the mitzvah of shofar. The one who's making the bracha on shofar, the shliach tzibur, he has to have in mind to be mitzi the tzibur with the brachas. When he blows shofar, he has to have in mind to be mitzi the tzibur with his blowing shofar. The people who are listening to shofar, they have to have in mind to be yotze the brachas of shofar and to be yotze the mitzvah of shofar. So to over here by Kiddush, when you make Kiddush around your dining room table, you have to have in mind that you're being mitzi the other people around the table in their chiyuv of Kiddush. And they have to have in mind that they're being yotze with your Kiddush. Always bothers me when you have kids, older children, not kids. Gedolim, and they're goofing around a little bit around the table or whatever it is, or they're busy with something. They have to be listening to Kiddush. They have to have in mind to be yotze Kiddush. And Tati has to have in mind to be mitzi them. Lachein, therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim mehanachain, it would be proper sheyazkir balabais l'bnei beisai, that the balabais should mention to the people around this table, sheyechavnu latzes, that they should have kavanah to be yotze Kiddush. V'ayin l'kavan b'siman reisha and gimel min Mishnah Berurah sifkat and lamed mashe nichtav sham. Over there, the Mishnah Berurah discusses the one who's making Kiddush in the Beis HaKnesses. Are you yotze? If somebody's eating a suda in the shul, is he yotze with the Kiddush of the one making Kiddush in the Beis HaKnesses? Not so pashut. He has to make sure that the one that's making Kiddush actually had kavanah to be mitzi him. Vav Kimoisam, the woman has the same level of chiyuv as the men. Ach le'inyan zman yesh chiluk. However, even though the Mechaber says over here that the chiyuv of Kiddush Daraisa is the same by men and women, the Mishnah Berurah just throws in a technical detail. Ach le'inyan zman yesh chiluk. When it comes to the time that the chiyuv kicks in, that's not the same by men and women. The beish zman chiyuvim in HaTorah kushu ben shlosh esrei. By a boy, the age of bar mitzvah is 13. Ubiisha, by a woman, kishanas is bas shtei mesrei. It's by bas mitzvah, which is 12. Da'az hi mischayeves bechol ha-mitzvahs. Okay, Sif Gimel, last word, top line in the Shulchan Aruch. Now we come to a question of precedence. We have somebody who has limited financial resources, and we're going to discuss over here 3 or really 4 different items that you need to spend money on for Shabbos. And a person who has limited resources, what should the order of precedence be? So we're going to talk about yayin for Kiddush Halayla, so yayin for Kiddush Friday night. We're going to talk about tzorchei Suda, food for the Suda Friday night, food for the Suda Shabbos by day, and we're also going to talk about yayin lekiddush hayom, wine for Kiddush by day. So we have 4 different things here. We have twice yayin. We need yayin for Kiddush by night, Friday night. We need yayin for Kiddush by day. And we have 2 Sudas. We have the Sudas Halayla, the Friday night Suda, and we have the day Suda. Now we have somebody limited financial resources. What should the order of precedence be? Says the Mechaber. Im ein yodai maseges liknois yayin lekiddush. If somebody doesn't have enough money to buy wine for Kiddush Friday night, this is talking about Friday night, ulahachin tzarchei Suda lechvayid alayla v'lechvayid hayom, and to have food for the Friday night Suda and food for the Shabbos day Suda, lekiddush hayom, and to have wine for the day Kiddush. So we mentioned 4 things here: wine for Kiddush Friday night, food for the Suda Friday night, food for the Suda Shabbos by day, and wine for Kiddush by day. Says the Mechaber, what do? Mutav, it is better, sheyikna yayin lekiddush halayla. The first thing you should do is wine for Kiddush Friday night. Mima sheyachin tzarchei hasuda, that comes before buying the tzarchei hasuda, the food for the Suda, either for Friday night or for Shabbos day, or for Kiddush by day. So, okay, so we have over here, we had 4 items: wine for Friday night Kiddush, wine for Shabbos morning Kiddush, tzorchei Suda, the food for the Friday night Suda, the food for the Shabbos day Suda. You have limited resources. Where do you go first? Says the Mechaber, wine for Friday night Kiddush. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah, where the Mishnah Berurah is going to go a little bit of a deeper dive and delve into the details and the caveats of this a little bit more. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Zayin. Mutav sheyikna. The Mechaber says the first place you go is yayin for Kiddush Friday night. Now, from a 30,000 feet level, this seems to be very simple to understand. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the Kiddush u'mitzasei daraisa, because we've just been saying that Kiddush is a daraisa. Right? Suda. What's the requirement of the Suda? Either Friday night or Shabbos by day. Whom it says Oinig. Midivrei Kabbalah. That's Oinig Shabbos. Ukidiksiv from the pasuk in Yeshaya, the Karasa LaShabbos Oinig. That you have a responsibility to declare Shabbos a delight, an Oinig. That's AKA Su'udais Shabbos. Friday night Suda, Shabbos day Suda. So if you do the math, Kiddush, that's a daraisa. Suda Shabbos, darabanan. What comes first? Kiddush, daraisa. We're also going to see that Kiddush Shabbos by day is also darabanan. So the order of precedence, right? Kiddush Friday night, daraisa. Suda Shabbos, divrei Kabbalah. We learn that from Navi. Kabbalah doesn't mean supernatural, esoteric stuff. Kabbalah over here means we learn it out from a pasuk in Nevi'im. That's called Divrei Kabbalah. So it comes from a pasuk in Yeshaya, the Karasa l'Shabbos Einig. That's a notch under a daraisa. So the daraisa of Kiddush is going to come before the Divrei Kabbalah of Suda Shabbos. It's also going to come before the Darabanan of Yayin l'Kiddush for Kiddush by day. Okay. Now, points out the Mishnah Berurah, There's a great question that you can ask on this based on what we learned in earlier in today's share and yesterday's share. And that is, wait a second, Kiddush Friday night is a daraisa? The only daraisa is to recite the words of Kiddush, a verbal declaration. You don't need yayin. You could be yotze your chiyuv daraisa just by davening ma'ariv, or just by reading Kiddush for the bencher. You covered your chiyuv daraisa. So why do you need wine? Why does the wine, the kais, which is only the rabbanon, why does that take precedence over V'karasal Shabbos Einig, over the Suda Shabbos? Bam kasha, that everybody listening to the share should have had. Answers the Mishnah Berurah. Really? You could be Yotze Yechiv Daraisa just by reciting Kiddush, you don't need wine. The Chanal, the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Beis, and the need for wine is only a requirement with the Rabbanon. So how does the wine for Kiddush Friday night take precedence over Divrei Kabbalah of Tzarchei Suda? How does that work? Explains the Mishnah Berurah, Afilu Hachi, still in all, Kevin the Iker Kiddush hu min HaTorah, since the Iker Chiyuv of Kiddush is a din daraisa, Gam Yayin Shaloi Kaidam Lakoil, Kiddush is a daraisa. The Chazal Midrabanan, they pegged onto it a need to do it ala kais, to do it ala yayin. But it's part and parcel of a larger chiyuv daraisa. So we look at it as a chiyuv daraisa. In this context, when we deal with what takes precedence over what, we don't parse and say, oh, the recitation of Kiddush is a daraisa, the wine is only a darabanan. No, Kiddush Friday night is a daraisa, therefore the wine takes precedence the same way the Kiddush does, and that's going to come before Tzarchei Suda and Yayin LeKiddush by day. Okay, next. We spoke about over here the question of Yayin, wine for Friday night Kiddush, or Tzarchei Suda. What do the words Tzarchei Suda mean? It means the needs of the Suda. Okay, what exactly does that mean? The potato kugel, the roast chicken, the chicken soup, the gefilte fish, the apple cobbler. Look, what are tzarchei suda? How about the pas? Is the pas also called tzarchei suda? The lechem, the challah, is that also tzarchei suda? So are we saying that the wine for Kiddush takes precedence even over challah? So you're not even going to be able to wash? Says the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'yiskimu achronim. The Achronim agree. It's the Magen Avram, the Taz, the El Yerabah, the Tosefes Shabbos. He says, "V'kosu Achronim." The Achronim agree. The Hiskimu Achronim. The Chol Zeh Dafka Kishiyesh Lo Pas L'Tzarech Halaylo L'Tzarech Hayom. When does wine for Friday night Kiddush take precedence over Tzarchei Suda? That's if you have challah. You just don't have potato kugel, roast chicken, chicken soup, and gefilte fish. But challah you have. Pas, if you push it, don't have bread, you don't have challah. Mutav sheyikta like pas, then it's better that you should buy challah via kaddish alav and make kiddush ala pas. We're going to learn that you can make kiddush on bread. You don't have to make kiddush on yayin. You can make kiddush on pas. The hachayv lechel pas balayla v'chein lamachar b'yom HaShabbos, because you have a chiyuv to eat pas Friday night and Shabbos by day. Now, just in Reish Tzadik Aleph, when we talk about the chiyuv of having a lechem, of having pas by the Shabbos Sudas, there's a big machlokes. Is that a daraisa or is it a darabanan? The Yereim holds that it's a daraisa. Now, if you hold like the Yereim that pas is a daraisa, then the math over here is very easily understood. Kiddush is a daraisa. Yayin for Kiddush is a darabanan. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah said, since Iker of Kiddush is a daraisa, we're going to treat the Yayin like a daraisa also. But not in the face of pas, if pas is a daraisa. So then if you're left with a choice, right, I could either have Kiddush al hapas, and I could be yotze Kiddush daraisa, I could be yotze pas daraisa, I'm just not going to have challah. So okay, obviously, you're going to forego the yayin, and you're going to stick with pas. But the Mishnah Berurah doesn't paskin like the Yereim. The Mishnah Berurah over there paskins that pas, the need for lechem, for challah, Friday night and Shabbos day is only a drabanan. So now the math gets a little bit more complicated, but the math still works. Because what the Mishnah Berurah is saying is, bottom line, you have a chiyuv midrabanan to have pas. We're not going to tell you to sacrifice your chiyuv derabanan to have pas, and instead have yayin for kiddush Friday night, when if you get pas, you could be makayim your chiyuv derabanan of having pas, and you could also make kiddush ala pas. So you have the best of both worlds. We're not going to tell you to lose the pas for the Suda. So again, just in a nutshell, what the Mishnah Berurah said is, the Mechaber said that in order of precedence, yayin, wine, for Kiddush Friday night, takes precedence over tzarchei Suda for Friday night and Shabbos day. Says the Mishnah Berurah, tzarchei Suda does not include pas. Yes, the yayin for Kiddush Friday night comes before the potato kugel. It becomes before the chicken soup. It comes before the gefilte fish. But it doesn't come before pas. Pas would come first. Okay. A little bit further. Bottom line in the Mishnah Berurah. V'em yesh loy lekiddush laila. Let's say you have wine for Friday night kiddush. Ve'ein loy lekiddush hayom v'lechvayid hayom. But if you buy wine for Friday night kiddush, you're not going to have enough resources for wine for kiddush by day and for chvayid hayom, for a bakavadik suda by day. After Mistaber the Chvoid Hayom Adif Mikiddush Hayom, Chavetz Chaim says, given that choice, so you have wine for Kiddush Friday night. Now you have a problem. Your leftover resources, you kind of have to make a choice over here between what to do by day. I took my first money and I bought wine for Kiddush for Friday night. Now I have a question what to do by day. Do I buy wine for Kiddush by day? Or do I buy food for the Suda by day? Says the Mishnah Berurah that you would think that the food for the Suda comes before the wine for the Kiddush. Now why would you think that? The Mishnah Berurah doesn't say. He says it's Bestaber, but doesn't explain why. The answer is because Kiddush by day is, first of all, only a derabanan. It's not a deraisa. Second of all, the only reason this Kiddush by day is because we want to treat the Suda of day with tremendous kavod. Therefore, we gave it a Kiddush. Chazal gave Kiddush to the day Suda to make it equal to the Friday night Suda. So the whole inyan of Kiddush by day is only an inyan of Kvoid Hayom. Well, the Suda is the Iker Kvoid Hayom. In other words, that's what comes first. What came first? The chicken or the egg? What came first? The Suda of day or the Kiddush of day? The answer is the Suda of day. The Suda of day is the Karas al Shabbos Oinik. That's the Iker mitzvah of Kvoid Hayom. Now we attach to it a Kiddush to make the Shabbos day Suda similar to the Friday night Suda. But that came second. Therefore, it's mistaber, you would think, that if you have to choose between the Kiddush Hayom or the Kvoid Hayom, aka the Suda, you would choose Kvoid Hayom. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what you should actually do is, Mikamakayim, turning to Memvavam Beis, Efshir the Dailoi Bepas. But it's possible that the Iker Chiyuv of Kvoid Hayom, you could be yotze just with your challah. V'hamoisa yikna lo yayin l'kiddush hayom. And anything past challah should go to wine for kiddush hayom. So what he's saying is like this. You're stuck. How much should I spend my money? Should I go to the wine store and buy wine for kiddush by day? Or should I buy chopped liver and deli roll for the Sudas hayom? Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's mistaber. You would think that the chopped liver and the deli roll comes first, because that's Kvoid Hayom, and that comes before Kiddush Hayom. Says the Mishnah Berurah, not so quick, because you're already going to have pas. I already told you that pas comes before everything. So you're going to have pas for day. Once you have pas, it could be you're already Yotze Kvoid Hayom with the pas. So forgo the chopped liver and the deli roll now, and get yayin for the day Suda. He brings this down from the Magen Avram, and he says, V'ayin b'bir halacha, for greater detail. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Discuss of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rosh Hashanah should send Yeshua Sefuris Parnasit Sheduchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the Bias Gal Tzedek. B'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.